It's probably been like a tough few days, so I wanted to just make a light little story. It's just a showcase of a project that we recently did in Belgium, where we could really use Firebase and Flutter to create something in very limited time. It's for a shuttle bus service that the city of Bruges, a historical city in Belgium, wanted to have that circulate through the town and gets all passengers for free to their destination. So first of all, a quick overview. So I need to do this mandatory table of contents, then I'll give a brief introduction, I'll set up the story a little bit, then we get technical somewhere. It's going to be an interesting thing in there, don't worry. And then at the end, we'll have an exciting twist just to have a happy ending. So we'll see. So quick introduction on who I am. My name is Fré. I'm a lead app developer at Make It Fly, which is a software agency in Belgium focusing on mobile and the web. I'm based in Bruges, where this project is about as well. So it's something for my hometown. And I did a lot of, worked in a lot of different technologies, but eventually loved Flutter, and that's the one that I want to continue and talk about today. So about this shuttle bus, if you have a historical city, it comes with some challenges when it comes to mobility, and it's not always easy to have like big buses go through every street in the city. So the city of Bruges wanted to make that better as well, and they skipped a few of the bigger buses and replaced them with smaller shuttle buses that just circulate the center. And for that, they partnered up with Keolis, which is a worldwide mobility provider. And Keolis was actually already a client of ours. Now, for this project, they needed to have onboard displays that visualize what the upcoming stops will be of the bus so that the passengers know where to get off, of course. And that's when our partner from Keolis came to us. Actually, we were doing different projects for them as well, and he said like, yeah, we accepted this contract, we're gonna have some shuttle buses, but we still need to have those displays. And I said like, okay, it's something different, it's fun, it's instead of doing just a normal app running on mobile or just doing a website, it's something new, like we're up for it. And then I asked like, what is the timeline for this actually? And he like, I don't know if he was very confident of saying it, but he said like, yeah, well, this needs to be out there in 2 weeks. So it really changed everything. So we had to go with a different approach there. And actually, we didn't know anything about making these type of displays, so we still had to figure that out. But after that meeting, I just wanted to get stuff done, and I immediately chose for Flutter because we didn't know the platform yet. We were just like, okay, we'll see. It's UI. It's going to run on something. We'll figure it out. We're just going to make it. So here's an example of how it actually looks. It's pretty simple. On the right side, you see like the route that these shuttle buses all take. It's 2 shuttle buses circulating the city constantly. And I had a little video, but I don't think the audio works. But there is, yeah, it's not working, but there is. It's working better than expected. So yeah, we have spoken announcements as well. So we needed to provide that also in there. So we had a few challenges. First of all, of course, we had to have this real-time data every time the bus stops and leaves. We need to have that updated. We had those spoken announcements that we have to include. And we wanted to have a way of updating this as well, in case there would be any bugs or any changes that we do to these displays. So we wanted to have over-the-air updates. Now, at first we thought like, okay, let's just put a smart TV in there and it's gonna be fine. But then we thought about it like the city center of Bruges, I don't know if anybody's been there, but it's all cobblestones. And so these buses, they just bump up and down constantly. And I think if you just put like a smart TV in there, it would probably break after a few rides. So for all these challenges, we had to come up with solutions. And the first one that we chose to go with is to pick an industry standard screen that can deal with all of these bumpy roads and won't just break immediately. Um, Now these screens, they're good for their purpose, but they don't have anything of audio. There's no speakers included in there, so we needed to have that as well. And instead of looking at a different system, we just say, let's just use the radio on the bus. It's installed. Let's just use it there because we don't have time for it. So we just used it via the audio jack, and that worked just fine. Now the hardware still needed to be decided as well, and maybe it's not a surprise, but we went for the Raspberry Pi because it's just it has all the necessary connections. It's pretty cheap. You can just put it away easily. You can just integrate it. It's not nothing too hard, and you still get flexibility because you can still choose what type of software, which type of OSs you run on there, and we'll figure it out later. Now. I think this is the interesting slide. One of the things that we found just setting up the Raspberry Pi, I just used official Raspberry Pi imager, and then you can select an image. And I was just scrolling through there, and I bumped into this one called Full Page OS. And Full Page OS, it's just like it almost says in the name. It's a distribution that just visualize Chromium browser at the predefined URL, just put it full screen whenever you start it up. So that's what we went for. So we just had to, on every Raspberry Pi, we had to make sure that the URL that it had to go to was defined. It was actually just one for the application, but we put in the license plate of that specific bus in the URL, so our web application knows, okay, we need to get the data for this specific bus. So we use Flutter for Web because the web actually already has this over-the-air mechanism. And it was just every time the bus driver stops his ride, he shuts down the bus and he starts it again, you get a new request getting the latest version of that web application. Now, we did get lucky here, actually, because as you can see, there's something like autoplay policy. I don't know if anybody knows this, but in Chrome, if you go to a web page, it cannot just start playing audio or any type of media. The user has to interact with the page first. And there's a flag for that, but it wasn't enabled yet on this version of Full Page OS. And when I looked at this problem, I just saw 2 days before, somebody put in a pull request for that. And I think by the end of the week, there was a nightly build available that just fixed all that trouble. So we got lucky there. Definitely go check it out because I think it's a really good solution just to quickly have a kiosk type of application. And it's super simple to work with. Now, we had this, but where do we get the data from? We still need to know where the buses are and so on. And like I said, Keolis actually is a partner from us for a couple of years, and we made different products for them as well. And 4 years ago already, with one of the first versions of Flutter, we created a driver's assistant app that sits in a tablet on the bus and just shows the next stop that the bus driver needs to do. It does some other stuff as well, like collecting some analytics, you might say, of which groups of people are getting on and off at which stop. So we already had a system that was collecting all this data. So we knew where the bus was going to be. Now, all these events about I stopped this at this place, I started again, they had to be manually entered. But that was not the real big issue for the driver. And all of these events there uploaded in batches. But as long as the device had a constant internet connection, it only gave us 2 seconds of delay. So it went quite fast. So we put in a SIM card on those tablets. And that way, we could also set up a hotspot for the Raspberry Pi, because the Raspberry Pi still needed to have an internet connection as well. So that way, it could connect everything together. Now, where does Firebase come into play here? So first of all, hosting we needed to host the web application. It's just like a one-liner. You just put it up there. It's super simple. Firebase already gives you like a domain. We didn't have to change that because it's not visible anywhere. It's just all internally. And another thing that probably everyone would guess is we use Firestore to have like real-time updates of our data. So it's just a collection of that specific bus with its license plate, and it picks up the current state of that bus ride. Now, another product that we use was Cloud Functions, because the backend was written in Symfony PHP, and I think that our backend developers didn't have a lot of experience with that, but it's super easy just to write an API endpoint with Cloud Functions that they could interact with. So that was just a few lines of code, and our backend developer could just send an API call every time the events came in. Now, we thought like, yay, it works in the office. So in the last week, so week 1 is done, everything is implemented, it works, and then we have to install it. So only on Tuesday, the buses arrived. They were still being assembled themselves, and we went there, installed the Raspberry Pis, and like nothing worked. And I was like there's no power here. What happens? So while they were trying to figure that out, I went to the other bus, took the Raspberry Pi, put in the power cord, and I'm like, yeah, there's a light and smoke. So what actually happened is they accidentally put the wrong voltage on the power cables, so it fried both of our Raspberry Pis right in the week that we needed to go live with this. We were able to order them, have them 2 days later. By then they fixed the problem. It seemed to be working on the bus. And then the next day, we did our first production test during the press conference. So I was sitting in this bus next to the mayor of the city, like just hoping that things would work. But it does. And eventually, the next day after that, these buses were touring the city since then, and it's still been going on. So I don't think there's any time for any questions, but I'd like to thank you for listening to this showcase.